A freight locomotive pulls away from a signal in the rain, throttle opening, thousands of horsepower waking up under the hood. Then, just beneath the leading wheels, a faint hiss and a thin stream of sand appears against the wet black steel, gone in an instant under the turning wheel. Nobody standing trackside would think twice about it, and yet every wheel on that locomotive touches the rail on a patch of steel roughly the size of a coin, and through that coin-sized contact, the entire pulling force of a train that can weigh more than a small building has to pass, every ounce of it. So why does a machine capable of hauling 10,000 tons need help from something you could scoop up on a beach? Let's get into it right here on Small Things. Adhesion, in plain terms. Engineers call the grip between a train wheel and the rail beneath it adhesion, a word that sounds technical but means something almost embarrassingly simple. How much the wheel can push against the rail without just spinning in place. Steel on steel offers very little of it. Smooth metal sliding against smooth metal with barely anything to bite into. Sand does not glue the wheel to the rail the way tape sticks to a wall. It works more like the grit worked into the sole of a running shoe, tiny hard points that give a smooth surface something to catch on for a fraction of a second, just long enough for the wheel to find its grip and pull. That fraction of a second is the entire story. A fireman climbing down from a moving cab. It did not begin with an engineer at a drafting table. It began with a fireman climbing down from a moving cab in the middle of a job. A report from England's Commissioners of Railways in 1851 describes a locomotive that lost its grip hauling a heavy train over dirty ballast, and the fix at the time fell to the fireman who had to climb down, gather grit from beside the track by hand, and throw it under the spinning drivers while the engine idled and waited. The job was slow, filthy, and dangerous. A man on foot beside a live locomotive that could lurch forward the moment its wheels found purchase again, but it worked well enough that railroads noticed the pattern immediately. Even a small handful of grit restored enough grip to get a stalled train moving again, which meant the problem was never really about power. It was about contact. By the 1850s, builders were mounting proper sand containers directly on top of the boiler, letting the heat rising off the firebox keep the sand inside dry through a whole day's run. Gravity did the rest, feeding sand down narrow pipes toward the wheels whenever a crew opened the valve. It was an improvement, but a fragile one. A crosswind could scatter the sand before it ever reached the rail, and the smallest trace of damp would clump the grains together and choke the pipes solid within hours, leaving a crew with a useless system exactly when they needed it most. The real breakthrough came from a workshop manager, not a locomotive designer. In 1886, Francis Holt, running the Midland Railways works at Derby, built a system that used steam from the boiler itself to blast sand horizontally onto the rail with real force, immune to any crosswind that would have scattered the old gravity-fed systems. The following year, the designer Samuel Johnson used Holt's invention to revive a locomotive type everyone had already written off. Big single driving wheel engines that had always struggled for grip on anything but a dry rail. With steam sanding gear fitted, those engines became some of the fastest express locomotives in Britain, and they stayed in mainline service for nearly 50 years, riding on an idea a fireman had once carried in his bare hands. What happens in the instant a grain meets a wheel? So what actually happens in the instant a grain of sand meets a moving wheel? Railroads do not use ordinary beach sand, the kind worn smooth and round by years of waves. They use quartz, chosen specifically because its grains fracture into hard, angular shapes rather than smooth, rounded ones, closer to tiny broken pieces of glass than to grains from a beach. When a locomotive wheel rolls over a grain positioned just ahead of it, the wheel's own weight crushes that grain against the rail with enough force to partly embed it into both surfaces at once, biting into steel that would otherwise offer nothing at all to hold on to. Picture pressing a handful of gravel into wet clay with your palm. The gravel does not slide across the surface. It digs in, leaving a rough, cratered texture behind where a smooth surface used to be a moment earlier. That is close to what happens between wheel and rail, except the surfaces involved are hardened steel rather than clay, and the crushing force comes from a machine that weighs as much as a building bearing down through a single tire's width of contact. Each grain does this job exactly once. It gets crushed, it does its work, and it is gone, ground into dust and swept along by the next wheel in line, which is why a locomotive never stops needing more of it, no matter how far the train has already traveled. What makes this genuinely surprising is how little has changed about the core idea in over a century and a half. Engineers have tried ceramic coatings, chemical traction compounds, and specialized synthetic grits engineered specifically for this job, and none of it has ever fully replaced plain crushed quartz. It is one of the most common minerals on the planet, sitting under beaches and riverbeds on every continent, cheap enough to buy by the ton and simple enough to load with a shovel, and it still outperforms nearly everything built in a lab to compete with it. Every locomotive design changes. The sand itself, remarkably, almost never does. Not quite harmless. It would be easy to assume that sand is simply a harmless fix, more grip with no real downside, so a generous driver could never really overdo it. That is not quite right. Sand is an electrical insulator, and modern railway signaling depends on a train's steel wheels completing an electrical circuit across the two rails, which is how the system knows a section of track is occupied. Pack enough sand between wheel and rail, and that circuit can break. The system stops detecting the train that is sitting right there. On the evening of May 6, 1990, a heritage steam locomotive stalled on a steep grade north of Sydney, Australia, called Cowan Bank. As its wheels searched for grip and lost it entirely, sand was applied to help the train move again, and it worked exactly as intended, but the sand left behind on the rails also broke the track circuit that told the signaling system a train was occupying that stretch of line, and the signal behind the stalled train cleared to green. A following passenger service, given no warning that the line ahead was occupied, collided with the stalled train. 6 people died, and dozens more were injured. A coronial inquiry later confirmed that the sand itself, not a mechanical failure, had produced the false signal. It was not an isolated case either. A near collision in Germany more than a decade later traced back to the exact same cause, excess brake sand quietly breaking the same kind of circuit on an ordinary morning. People who never see it happen. Every autumn, a track maintenance supervisor in the north of England walks a stretch of line coated in something almost invisible, a thin, dark film left where fallen leaves have been crushed under passing wheels. Railroaders call it the black ice of the railroad. Rain and frost cut grip in half. This film can cut it by 90% or more, and she has watched a train that should stop in 500 meters need several thousand instead. She radios ahead for a treatment train before the evening service. In the cab of a modern freight locomotive, a driver accelerating out of a yard never touches a sand control at all. Sensors on every axle compare wheel speeds dozens of times each second, and the moment one wheel spins even slightly faster than the others, the system cuts power to that motor and fires the sanders on its own. She has felt this happen 1,000 times without ever seeing it happen. Just a brief change in the engine's note and a smoothness returning to the pull, gone before she could have reacted herself. At a rail yard sand tower before dawn, A worker in a dust mask watches a hose feed dried sand from a storage silo into a locomotive's tanks, a job that once meant hauling 50-pound bags by hand and now takes minutes through a sealed pipe. He has never once thought of the sand as anything special. To him, it is simply inventory, restocked before sunrise so someone else's train can climb a grade he will never see. Too little, too much. A locomotive can weigh more than a bridge and still be stopped cold by something as small as a wet leaf. Sand does not change that fact. It only gives the machine a brief, borrowed way around it, spent by the ounce and never actually solving the underlying problem at all. Too little, and the wheels spin uselessly against steel that will not hold them. Too much, and the very system meant to keep trains apart goes quietly blind. The engineers who keep freight and passengers moving safely are not chasing some future material that finally solves friction for good. They are getting better year after year at controlling something this ordinary with a precision that would have astonished the fireman who once threw a handful of grit and hoped. If this changed the way you look at the next train you see pulling away in the rain, let us know in the comments what you want us to explore next. We might make it our next episode. Thanks for watching. History often hides in the smallest details.